Morning, everybody. On behalf of the Pineal Business Association, I would like to welcome all of you this morning. My name is Cheryl Adamson, and I head up the Business Association. And we've had a lot of these seminars. We have one a month, but I'm really looking forward to this morning. The format of the session will be that Josephine Rudkin-Binks, who's one of our board members, will introduce our two speakers, and we'll save questions for the end. So please, can I ask you to have your mics on mute? As you heard, the session is being recorded, and following the session, it will be sent to you via a link and will also be available on our website. This morning's invitation was billed as when going round in circles is a good thing, and we have two highly credited speakers this morning who are not only active in their own space, but encouraging other businesses to jump on board the circular economy train. And so I'm going to say farewell and bid Joey to introduce our speakers. As you see, she's got a very dark background behind her because she's coming to us all the way from the UK. Over to you, Joey.
Morena, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Josephine Totuingwa. So as Cheryl says, we're delighted to bring this month's sustainability webinar to you on the topic of the circular economy. At the moment, our current economy is that we take materials from the earth and we make products from them. We eventually throw them away as waste. And the whole process currently is very linear. By contrast, in the circular economy, we stop waste being produced in the first place. So what we really need to do is transform every element of our sort of make, waste system and think hard about how we manage resources, how we make and use products, what materials we use, and what we do with them afterwards. So as Cheryl says, we're delighted to bring this topic today. We've got two amazing, talented speakers, and I'm first going to introduce to you Bree. So Bree Asmus, Bree brings over 10 years experience in design, strategy and storytelling to Circularity and to Aotearoa's future circular economy. Originally trained as a product designer, Bree is highly regarded, empathetic strategist, well-versed in a wide range of industries across some of our leading businesses and brands, including Toy to Envirocare, and that's where I came across Bree, Tourism Holdings, North Power, Silverfern Farms, Les Mills, and many, many more. So I'm absolutely delighted to hand over to you, Bree.
Thank you. Thanks for a wonderful introduction, Joey. Gosh, what an intro. So let me share my screen. Go. Can everybody see that? Great, perfect. So morena koutou e hoema. Thank you for having me on behalf of Circularity, and I can see Louise Nash, our founder and CEO of Circularity, on the call as well. So morena lo. So we're here to talk about the circular economy, and what a great intro, Joey. Thank you. But first, I just wanted to touch base with the reason behind the circular economy. So ko te ohanga amio mio, the circular economy, te kaupapa o te hui nei, he a kongo tātou, he kai ako tātou, no papatua nuku te mori I hono, mai na mia katoa, ki tāta mahi, mō nā taiao, nā kārarehi, nā moana, nā whenua, te haora o nā tangata katoa. Mō te haora, te rangimarie, mō te pai o te ao. Nō reira, ka tīmata, tēnā koutou katoa. So good morning. I want to acknowledge for all of us and center us with the reason why we're here behind any sustainability or any circular economy conversation is the intent of shaping the way we work, live and interact with our world that is more in tune with our natural environment and the ecosystems that we are a part of. So good morning world, good morning oceans and waters and land. So as Joey introed, I am a circular and design strategist. My skills cross many paths, and I did meet Joey on the Toitu work, and that actually changed the trajectory of my career. So thank you, Josephine. And that's the point that I joined Circularity and started working with Louise on helping businesses make those shifts. So look at how they use their materials, how they use their products or change them into services, and how they interact with the natural world around them in more beneficial ways. So grounding a little bit in the work we do at Circularity, we believe in a future where business is in tune with nature And very importantly, the value we make aligns with the values we live by. And this is something I think all of us are hearing a lot. It's less about the value that we are making, but it's the values by which we're operating as well. And I see that shift in the work that we do, the clients that we work with across different industries. So at Circularity, we work with change makers. We work with those who are wanting to make the shift, and we help them unlock their circular opportunity and move into that space. And we're a very multidisciplinary team. So here's a few of us. We've got quite a wide and varied extended whānau. But what I love about the work that we do in the circular economy space is it takes all different disciplines to work together. And so it's not about one discipline or one industry. It's about bringing creativity, sustainability, environmental strategy, and entrepreneurial spirit into this space. And it's still an emerging space. So it's a wonderful place to work in and to work with these businesses that are pioneering what our future business economy will look like. Very much like Donald at Citizen, who is shaping that space and leading that space. But much like Toitu, at the heart of what we do, it's our shared values and the purpose that drives us to help shape and protect the future for us. And as Jerry has said, there's never been a greater opportunity or time to act than right now. And it will always be act now. It's becoming very clear for all of us in our personal and professional lives that the existing take, make, waste economic model is very unsustainable. And you can see by some of those numbers there of the wasted resources, the excessive emissions being created in that making and that taking, plus the threats to our natural biodiversity, our waters and our soils. We know that the goals that we set and the actions that we need to take, they have to be really bold and they have to be ambitious. And ultimately, we do need to have a total redesign of how we're operating. You can't dwell on that for too long. You need to focus on moving forward, which is what we do. And that's the opportunity that the circular economy offers us. It offers us a path forward and offers us a way of making those shifts that we need to make. And they don't necessarily need to happen all at once as well, which is the beautiful thing. You can have circular economy initiatives and projects that happen alongside your normal everyday and business operations, and then you can gather the momentum for total redesign. So just to get us on the same dance floor, if you like, around what is the linear economy through to what is the circular economy. And we've assuming most people on the call will have a basic understanding of how we operate within a linear economy, but it's important to fall into this even further. And something we like to do at Circularity is talk about falling in love with a problem. So understanding the linear nature of your business. So looking at how is your business using your resources, what materials are being used, how are they flowing through not only your business, but through your extended supply chain, your partners and stakeholders, and how are they being created, at what points, with who, and where do they end up after they leave your hands, metaphorically. And then from there, you can see where the impacts are being created, what are the gaps, what is unnecessary, what can you really zero in on to solve. And so it's from that base of having a really strong understanding of how you're operating in a linear way, you can start making those shifts towards a circular way of operating. And we know that we can't arrive at a circular economy overnight, and there's shifts we need to make, but we also know that we can't simply recycle our way out of this crisis in terms of our waste emissions and our environmental impact. But it's also important to acknowledge that we can't continue working within or fixing these systems with the same thinking that created them. So we need to go further. We need to draw on new thinking, new ways of coming up with solutions that we may not have done before. And that's how we can start solving the root problems of these causes of the impact. So that leads us to the opportunity, which is circular economy. So we talk about this as being a circular design opportunity. And the reason we do that is because at the moment, less than 9% of our resources and materials globally are being cycled back for reuse. And that means that we have about 91% opportunity for redesign. And that's huge, that's massive, that's incredible potential to change the way we do things in a way that actually generates new value for our businesses, for our communities, and for our environment as well. And if we think about this from an economic perspective, or a traditionally economic perspective, it's been estimated there's about a $4.5 trillion opportunity there for a more climate positive, circular and regenerative future. And in Tamaki Makaurau alone, that's been estimated as an $8.8 billion opportunity. So this isn't just about improving environmental impact, it's actually about being smarter with how we work, how we use our products, how we create our services, and how we run our businesses. And very simply, this is the shift we need to make. So shifting from a perception of waste to seeing it as a resource, possibly in the wrong place that needs to be reconnected or close the loop on. From shifting from recycled to renewed, from extractive to regenerative, from closed and working in silos or businesses alone to collaborative, connecting wider, networking that participation, from linear through to circular. So how? The circular economy, for those of you who aren't very familiar with the principles, has 3 principles, and these are amazing. So the first principle is about designing our waste and pollution. And so by using this perceived waste as a resource to reduce the cost and dependency on virgin materials and non-renewable energy. And there's a phrase that I really love, who's by the chef that runs Silo Restaurant now in London, which is a completely zero waste restaurant. And he talks about waste as simply a failure of the imagination. You know, we haven't gone far enough to see how we can actually use this material in new ways. So that's the first sphere, if you like, first principle. Secondly, it's about keeping our resources in use and at really high value. So this is how we design our products so they can be disassembled. It's designing them to be repaired, to be retrieved, repaired, and used over and over again, perhaps before being remade or perhaps even returning to the earth if they are within the biosphere. It's also about looking at technology and using technology to keep those resources in use. So that's enabling products to become services where people pay per use and usage is optimized. So we don't end up in a scenario where we have cars sitting on the road with no usage, or washing machines that break down after 2 years and you have to get a new one. You're actually paying per use and you're treating these products as services. And thirdly, probably the one that I'm most personally passionate about is about regenerating the natural systems we're a part of. And this is a real simple mindset shift around playing our role. You know, we're a part of the nature that we live in. We're not apart from it. So how do our businesses interact with our environment? How do they give back more than they're taking? How do they respect and interact with our land, our soil, our rivers, our oceans, and the other species that are a part of this ecology? So in a nutshell, that's the circular economy, and that's how it's designed to operate. But often what becomes a little challenging is when you try to put these principles into action within your business. So yes, we all want to be there. We all want to be operating in a circular way, but how do we put that into action? And that's where we have the wonderful circular by design methodology. So this is at the heart of how circularity operates and how we run both our client projects, but also our co-design workshops with other businesses. And these methods were designed by Louise Nash, who's on the call, as part of her Master of Tech Futures. And they bring together a huge amount of knowledge and expertise from international and local circular economy experts. And they draw on a huge amount of case studies of circular innovations. And the main thing that we really use these circular by design methods for is to start prompting that creative problem solving. So how could we use smart materials? How could we grow the world around us or grow our products in a way that's more in tune with nature? What materials could we be experimenting with? For example, all birds are using smart materials in these shoe innovations. How can we create closed loop systems by connecting the waste of one to become the value of another? And I think a really perfect example is Citizen. So Citizen are doing that with their closed loop systems. And I saw this in action last week at X Labs, where we had people coming up to Donald and saying, I have materials you can use. So I've got, you know, these tomato stalks that maybe can come into play into products. So it's closing the loop through to more regenerative behaviors, which is more in that third principle. So how does the work you do inspire regeneration back to the land around you? And one way to do that is also with network participation. So connecting up different groups to scale up your impact. And you see that, for example, with litter intelligence. where they are able to activate a community to understand our litter challenges and to make progress in reducing that impact. So I won't go into them too much detail now because I've got a few examples to share with you. But also just wanting to acknowledge that we put these into action within our co-design space, which is known as X Labs. So that's a program we run with MFE and Auckland Unlimited, Tātaki, but also with Toitu. So Toitu have been an incredible partner for us on X Labs, and this is something that we run usually every year when pandemics aren't around. But this is about bringing businesses and industries together and experts together in the same room. So we're actually problem solving across our shared issues, which is so important because, like I said earlier, you can't solve these problems with the same thinking that created them. And often the solution lies in somebody else's mind that's working in a completely different space. And the drivers of X Labs, I think, are applicable to any work that you're doing within a circular economy space or any circular projects that you have on the go. And that's about the collaborative collisions. So seeking out new perspectives, seeking out collaboration with others from unexpected places. It's about imaginative innovation. It's not being restricted by what's possible today, but rather designing what's going to be possible in 5 or 10 years' time. And it's about committing to that tangible progress and making sure you have the network around you to make that progress happen. A few of the businesses that we had at X Labs, and I believe Jade is on this call, who is the founder of Good Space. So we have some incredible businesses that we've worked with, and they continue to grow in their successes, like EV Maritime, who've just secured 2 EV ferries to help look after our harbours. Including Bobucks, who created a platform that turned shoe ownership into custodianship, and where shoes can be shared across 3 walks of life rather than going through 1 walk of life and then ending up in landfill. So all of these businesses have been exploring some of these circular solutions using that methodology that sparks closed loop systems, smarter materials, regenerative behavior. For example, Haka Tourism was looking at how they can create regenerative behavior within the tourist experience. And these are some of the big fellas and little guys that were involved in X Labs last week and who we continue to engage with on our X Labs platform. So we have Lion there looking at reinventing FMCG and how that works within the beverage space, how we can eliminate single-use packaging, if you like. We also had a group of businesses from the Franklin region, which I thought was really interesting for you guys as a Parnell collective. And considering, you know, imagine if you came together and looked at what challenges you share within your region and how you might actually work together on some of those issues in a circular fashion. And there's been examples of areas or even streets that have done this overseas, where one street has taken on the challenge of becoming a circular street, and what that means for all the material flows and resources used within that area. So I thought that was a nice challenge to leave you guys with. I'm just keeping an eye on time. But before I hand over to Donald, I wanted to share a little bit around why circular economy design and what these design solutions can look like. So just lifting you up in terms of, you know, where you could go. And again, the challenges that we face are so complex that they can't be solved by one business, one industry, one discipline alone. And that's where design and creativity offers us a bridge. It helps us translate scientific knowledge. It helps us blend ideas for new solutions. It helps us let go of what's impossible today within our current restraints to see, reimagine, and shape what could be possible, because the current constraints are the problem. So we need to push past them, and creativity gives us a way to do that. And the way that we see it at Circularity is that this is a design challenge. 80% of environmental impacts are believed to be determined at the point of design, at the very beginning of their life, and the design of products and how they're used and how they're discarded. And the same way with systems. So by applying that circular economy thinking and creative problem solving from the very beginning, we can design those problems out at the very outset. And that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for businesses that don't have those impacts because they've redesigned the cause of those impacts. And as I said, that doesn't need to happen straight away. It can happen with projects. It can happen across horizons. So here's a few examples of the circular economy design solutions that we see happening out in the world. And you know, what I love about these is all of them involve a mindset shift. They all involve a different way of looking at a product or an offer or a business sense of value, and they redesign that. So circular design solutions can close the loop. You know, with Citizen, they can take what might be perceived as wasted or excess food value and turn that into something entirely new and more valuable in some cases. They keep our technical and our biological spheres unblended, which is really important as well. So we can continue reusing, and we can also return the biosphere back to nature as well. So connecting in with our ecosystems. Circular solutions inspire new rituals and offerings. There's a lot of education and behavior change required for us to operate in a circular fashion. So a secret is finding ways of making it desirable. So making it more convenient, more cost effective, making it easier, and you know, with the hopes that people actually desire to do better. And we really see this happening in the fashion and beauty space with people like Maggie, Marilyn, with Ruby, and many more, with Emma Lewisham, actually changing the expectations of what is good design, what is a good product. Circular solutions transform wasted material into valuable resources. And you see this happening with Saveboard, which is pictured here, turning Tetra Pak packaging waste into construction materials like ceiling tiles or panels, and critical design as well, turning excess plastic into plastic paneling and furniture. So it's reimagining how those materials can be used in really new ways. And you see this changing as well within the footwear space, where recycled materials are actually becoming the new desirable shoe. So you see the flecked plastic material, you know, that's becoming a design feature that people look for. They want to be seen wearing those shoes. And within the smart material space, it's also about innovating with smarter, more natural resources. For example, like Allbirds with their sugar foam shoes, which I happen to be wearing right now. So it's about those natural materials, but it's also about sharing those techniques and those materials. And so Allbirds have set a good example about open sourcing their learnings. And it's not about leading the way by having your proprietary technology or ways, but finding a way of bringing others along with you. And that's where that thought leadership, that leadership within your industry is really set. And it's about reimagining materiality itself. It's going beyond what's expected today and looking to nature to actually grow the materials that we use and learning from that natural intelligence. And connecting new needs across industries. So for example, Profile, who we do a lot of work with, who produce about 50% of New Zealand's aluminium windows and doors, have recently started making the shift from all single-use plastic packaging to now use a will-in packaging solution that we call will looped, so that they be used multiple times before being returned to the earth. And it's how we design, it's rewriting the culture of making. And Nike do that incredibly well with 4 principles of innovating, scavenging, protecting, and adapting. It's defining leadership by retrieving and reusing. It's platforms to renew, revive, and thrive. It's drawing us closer to origin with how we connect with our food, with our materials and our resources. It's upcycling to serve a greater purpose, like everybody eats. It's learning from and teaching with nature. So designing our spaces to be in tune with nature, as well as our education itself. So here's good space. And it's about guiding behaviors with greater connection, like with the Tiaki promise. And growing our cities and shared spaces to interact and replenish both land and our communities with our urban environments. Scaling up impact with collective action, like I mentioned with litter intelligence. Through to sharing the true cost, being really clear on how you communicate the cost beyond the financial value, how you can make that cost very visible and understood by your consumers or customers, and then sharing, again, open source, how you do so. Circular solutions unsubscribe from ownership. So they treat products as services in some scenarios to optimize their usage and value creation, like with light. You know, you no longer pay for light bulbs, you actually subscribe to the light itself. And there's a layer of technology that can be used to embed transparency and trust across your supply chains as well, like with Everledger, and to continually measure, share, and uplift that standard for your own business, but also for your industry. So really openly sharing your innovations and your learnings across your industry so that others can come on the journey and they can inspire their own improvements. So I'll speed through that quite quickly because I'm conscious of leaving Donald a bit of time. But at the end of the day, circular economy helps us better understand, unravel, and redesign the impacts of BAU. And the very start of that is the mindset shift. So thank you for having me. A few last things to leave you with before I hand over to Donald is, what can you start doing? You can learn, you can really lean into what is a circular economy and how you can activate it. We have some online offerings for that with XLabs. You can also start innovating with a specific project or initiative to start getting that ball rolling and to start playing within that space. It doesn't need to be, like I said, a full business redesign, but start. You know, this is the time to start moving into that space. And then you can activate circular economy across your whole business, and you can reach into co-design by working with other businesses in your region or your city. And then you can work with a broader range of people on these problems. So ngā mihi nui, thank you very much for having me. Feel free to get in touch via email or LinkedIn. And I will hand over to Citizen and to Donald.
Awesome. Thank you, Bree. Just before we hand over to Donald, just thank you. That was awesome. Some really great content, and I love the tips as well. And a couple of things really resonated with me. One in particular, I love the phrase, waste is a failure of our imagination. I think that is so true. And I think everyone needs to hold that close to their hearts. And I also love the challenge for the Parnell businesses. I could see Cheryl frantically scribing some notes when you were talking about that, because Parnell is very lucky that we have so many different diverse and very passionate businesses, and I could see that, you know, that they totally embrace a challenge like this. So yeah, would love to talk further with you on that.
Would love to.
So thank you, Bree. Our next speaker I'd like to hand over to is Donald Shepherd. So Donald is one of Citizen's, as you know, co-founders. Citizen is a new kind of organisation focused on rescuing and upcycling edible food that's currently going to waste and creating tasty, high quality, low impact food and beverages. Donald was inspired by globally renowned chef Massimo Bottura, a passionate advocate for reducing food waste. And Donald and Massimo created Food for Soul in London. This was all whilst he was working for Arkelic Group, a company that's now recognised in the top 100 in the world for sustainability. When Donald returned to New Zealand, he worked for Fisher and Paykel Appliances, and he was a member of their global sustainability steering group, in that supporting the transition to the company's new mission and values, which is totally dedicated to hitting the carbon zero commitment by 2030. So I would love to hand over to you, Donald.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jo. And thanks, Bree. That was a really insightful and interesting presentation. So because Donald's terrible at technology, Carolyn, are you okay to pop up the presentation and I'll do a thumbs up when we change slides? Is that okay? Seamless. Brilliant. So hi everyone, I'm Donald, I'm from Citizen, I'm one of the co-founders, and that word co-founders is a really important thing, because some of the messages that Bree sort of shared and talked about was that we don't do this alone, we do this as a group, and Citizen has a very much a collective mindset. It's about bringing together different people from different organizations to help us fight what is, as you're seeing on the first slide here, a really significant challenge with a third of the food globally, and that is also in New Zealand, going to waste. And I think the mindset change is, instead of food going to waste, we see it as wasted food. So we see if it is grown and produced for humans, then we want to find ways to rescue and upcycle that so we can enjoy food as well. Because if we don't, it actually has really negative impact. So if we click to the next slide, Carolyn, sorry. Yes, seamless. So if we don't, it actually really has negative impacts from fuel, deforestation, water going to waste. But then if it's ending in landfill, it has a double negative in terms of methane going up into that atmosphere, causing impact in terms of from a climate perspective. But I think what's really interesting, if you click to the next slide, Carolyn, Kiwis actually want change. They're actually looking for leadership and they're open to this. So if we go to the next slide, they're actually aware that as an individual, my behaviour is having impact and I want to change my behaviour. So half of New Zealanders want to. They're looking for brands and organisations and businesses to actually behave in a sustainable way. And it also means that they know that their diet is having a negative impact on the client. So they're looking for change. So that, from a citizen's perspective, we actually talk about that's all the negative stuff. We don't want to focus on that because we want to help New Zealanders make a change. But to the next slide, it's Bree mentioned it as well, Kiwis are looking to be more sustainable, but we have to make it easier for them. We have to make it simple, convenient, and for our side of things, as simple as picking up a can of beer, which we'll come to next. And one of the challenges that we as businesses face in this is we need to be clear. Consumers want leadership, but we have to be mindful of how we're communicating it, not overstepping, not overreaching. And I think Bree mentioned Allbirds, I use them as a great example, is they've been very clear on their journey. This is not a, hey, we're going to change it today and make it all brilliant tomorrow. But it's being authentic and upfront and transparent about what you can and what you are doing today and what you're looking to achieve tomorrow. So that clarity is really important. So, Citizen, what are we? So we're, in essence, we rescue perfectly edible produce, and I'll talk about where we get that shortly from, and we rework it. And these three words are really important, making tasty, low impact goodness. And what we believe at Citizen is it's great to have a good story, it's great to have a good philosophy about impact and reducing food going to waste, but we also know that if it doesn't taste good, people won't buy number 2 and number 3. And if we go back to our purpose, reducing edible food going to waste, we need people to pick this up more than once. And then we're really mindful about how we create an impact. So we're on a journey, and I'll talk about that, lowering our impact as well. Now, this slide here that you've got in front of you, this is actually from our friends at Food Stuff, and it shows where food is dropping out of the food system. Over on the right-hand side, we as individuals actually have a big part to play in our household, and we know there's some great work going here. If you go to the next slide, Carolyn, what we want to do is enable people like Food Stuffs to not only work with their 7 to 9% within their distribution and retail, but actually champion change right through that linear food system. And what we do is we pick up either byproducts, we pick up underproduction, we pick up wonky products, or we pick up unsold products. So it's picking up food at different points and rescuing it and reworking it or repurposing it into tasty goodness. So there's a real challenge. We started with the number 1 most wasted product here in New Zealand, and that's bread. So if we go to the next slide, you and I, in our domestic homes, we actually put into landfill over 20 million loaves of bread every year. And that's a huge, huge challenge. However, there's also the unspoken of between baker and between retailer. There's a whole amount of produce that's going to waste there as well. So we actually took some inspiration, like Bree was talking about, bringing minds together. We actually looked back to look forward on this occasion. And allegedly, according to Google, beer originated from bread got wet back in Babylon. So it is Google, so I hold my hand up. But it got wet, it fermented, and that was the origins of beer. And it came about and it fermented through, and then through generations, we changed the way from bread brewing to malt brewing, and we have our beer today. So we want to swap the way we work, and we're actually thinking in a circular way. So our system is we actually work with Goodman Fielder and Food Stuffs, and we collect bread that is returned to the bakery that is 2 days before its best before. So it's still fresh to eat, but it just can't be sold. So we take that bread and we turn it into oversized croutons. You'll see on that right-hand side, the chap pouring in, that's actually dried croutons. And then the chap with the malt, there's actually malt. So what we're doing is we're replacing malted barley, which is the main ingredient for beer, with wheat. So malt and wheat are the same family. We're extracting the starch from that product, and then we're turning that into fermentable sugars, and that becomes your alcohol. But at the end of our brewing process, we're actually left with a lovely, literally, for a 2,500 litre tank of beer, we're actually left with just under a ton of spent grains, and in our case, bread. So we've worked with some smart people at Food Bowl and Callaghan Innovation to turn that hot, wet, spent grain into a lovely, usable and extended life flour, which then we actually turn into bread on the left-hand side. And we work with Wild Wheat and others to actually take that spent grain and turn it into yummy bread. So we go from bread to beer to bread. So this is that circularity in terms of seeing where there is waste. In our case, we targeted bread. And then from our brewing process, we targeted our malt and our bread spent grains, and we use that to make bread. And what's lovely is we've been fortunate enough, and if we click to the next slide, is that system has been recognized as a really great circular system. Now, if we click to the next slide, we've got lovely 4 beers, which I won't go on to. We've got different flavors, etc. But this is the principles of how we work. So we work with Sawmill Brewery. We had one conversation with one brewery, and that was Mike and Kirsty at Sawmill. They're great people, they make great beer, but they're New Zealand's only B Corp brewery. So again, they've been mindful of how we act and lowering our impact. We choose to only use New Zealand malts and hops, which changes some of the flavor profiles for our beers. And that's all about reducing our carbon footprint from us as an organization. Every brew we reduce our use of malted barley up to 25%, which again is saving that intensively grown product, which is then intensively heated and dried and avoiding emissions. So we're not only saving food from going to waste, we're actually saving primary ingredients being produced as well. And then again, through our learnings, working out waste streams from our side of things is when we get the bread from the supermarkets, they come in plastic bags. So we actually, instead of putting those into landfill, we hand those to Jerome at Future Post, and he actually uses those to make fence posts. And likewise, our beer cans have got labels, paper labels on them. That has a plastic backing paper. We take that and we give that to Jerome. And it's just being mindful of every step. And likewise, we're moving to plastic free, so changing to paper tape, those sorts of steps and initiatives. And in terms of bringing corporations and getting in and support, Goodman Fielder is a great example. They're currently providing us that bread, which has a cost to them, to us for free, but there is a cost for us for collection and then turning that into croutons. So while some people go, oh, it must be cheaper to do a circular, it's not always, because there is a cost to process. But these are our pillars that we keep working to. But we know it's not here. It's not only just about bread, and we kind of call this our new kind of food revolution. And we're working on other projects as well. And whilst we can't be circular with everything, this is our series of, and I talked about our collective of people. So one of our co-founders and co-owners is Chef Ben Bailey. So these recipes are sauces that use rescued ingredients. So we've got wonky or flour damaged tomatoes to make a tomato ketchup. We've got broken mushrooms which were unable to be sold, made into a mushroom sauce. We've got chickpea water that's poured literally down the drain, and it was really, really difficult to access, from making hummus, from chickpeas that go into hummus that are aquafibered, made it into a mayo, and then you combine the tomato sauce and the mayo to make a burger sauce. So finding tasty ways to take byproducts or unsold products into new things. And then if we go to the next product, we started with fruit and vegetables as our number 2 focus because they're the number 2 most wasted. And it's about collaboration. And here's 2 examples of, we work with New Zealand Cherry Co-op down in the South Island, who are one of New Zealand's largest cherry growers, primarily for export, but they have a lot of cherries going to waste, which has historically literally just been composted. So we work with them to actually create cherry concentrates that then we partner with great organizations. So Morning Cider is a small craft cidery here in Auckland, and we use the cherry concentrate to make a cherry cider. So changing mindsets. And we're about to launch a new cherry cola with Burger Fuel in July, because they are starting to understand this rescued and regenerative approach in all they do. So it's about partnering and collaborating with people. So if we go to the next slide, and our final couple of slides, which I'll literally just sort of tap through, is we sort of talked about up front the scary negative side of things, but actually we as humans don't behave or respond to being told off, if you will. And we're about inspiring a positive movement, about inspiring a positive change. So that's where we work with our design agency special group, have come up with this series of posters, which are street posters that we've got up at the moment, that's just reframing the conversation in terms of having a bit of a being positive. And so like this whole look at the smile on this rescued bread's face. And likewise, on every can, we actually say, you've just rescued one slice of unsold fresh bread. So I feel good as a human by just going, by drinking this can of beer, I'm saving one slice of bread. Or this can of cherry cider, I'm saving 29 cherries from going to waste. So if you just click through, it's just kind of an upbeat, fun way of making people feel good about their actions. And it's, again, it's being that clear and positive communication to make people feel good about what they're doing. And that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Donald. Great imagery as well. So, and well done, Carolyn, for being the clicking person.
Thank you, Carolyn.
So, yeah, that was really, really great. And I think, you know, one of the things you said, being mindful of how we act is so important, because as Bree said, this is about shifting mindsets. And, you know, we're very stubborn. We know what we know what we like, we know what we do, and it's the hardest thing. And so collaboration is key. And you've given us, both of you have given us some great examples of how, if you can work with other businesses and sort of, you know, block out any preconceived ideas about how things should be done, then, you know, your opportunities are limitless, and you've both given us really good examples of those. So I would definitely be looking out for my Citizen beer, and I know Sawmill, they're a B Corp, and yeah, very want to support them too. So I'm sure we've got questions, so we have time. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions, please sort of type them in the chat, or feel free, as we're a not too big a crowd, unmute yourselves if you like, or raise your hand for a question.
And Joey, just to say before anyone asks a question, right at the top of the chat, Bree did put the link to her presentation, because somebody did ask about that further down the chat. So that is there, but we will also be circulating the presentations later and the recording.
Right. Well, whilst people are thinking about their question, I've got a quick question for Donald. How can we help you? How can you, with Parnell has got lots of amazing businesses. How can we support you? What can we do?
Wow, that's a good question on the spot. Well, I think like where we're at is we're all about providing or working with great organizations. Parnell is full of hospitality organizations, but it's also, so that's a logical place to work with Parnell Hospitality as they are looking to deal with this sort of challenge. We would love to support, but also corporate businesses, you know, like by simply choosing a Citizen beer for your next event, that actually helps you have a positive way. And then the third bit is that, and I see Wendy from Perfectly Imperfect, who's a fantastic human, and we actually source things like our tomatoes and mushrooms from Wendy. It's actually, if there is opportunities of food or production that you're aware of within your community, we would tap in. So we'd love to tap in and work with that and work with people. So for example, we went and we sourced our bread, but the cherry co-op came to us, and that's ignited a whole range of ciders and sodas. So if you've got something, we would love to support and work to see how we can work with you. So it's really a three-way invitation in terms of we'd love to support you as a business, or we'd love to if there is waste streams, to talk as well.
Awesome, thank you. While you're unmuted, Donald, the next question's also aimed at you. And this is from Phil McDonald. As a celiac, which obviously has a growth market, how about launching a gluten-free celiac approved beer?
Well, that's a good one. There are gluten-free beers. There's a really great brand, and I can never remember it off the top of my head, that's around. We haven't got there yet. But we'll take that, and we'll take that as a good challenge. All our sauces are vegan friendly, so there's a good start. So yeah, but we'll have a look at a beer as well. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Joey, I can just echo your sentiment and say I'd love further chats with both Donald and Bree in the next few weeks.
Cool. So from Tom, is there a business community where if we come across businesses where they have waste that we could intro into circular and orientated businesses? There's probably opportunities both with Circularity and Citizen here. So.
Absolutely. We've got X-Labs, which is essentially a business community working on circular solutions. So that's a really great one if you're wanting to learn about the circular economy, but also connecting with those businesses that have material in the wrong place, otherwise known as waste, or if you have surplus material that you're wanting to connect up. Likewise, we can always play matchmaker, so you're always welcome to get in touch with us. And I do know there is a circular directory that SBM have put together as well, so it's worth acknowledging that one as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Pleasure.
Any last questions from the floor?
Good.
So from Marjorie, similar question, is there a directory of upcycled circular orientated products for those purchasing? I know the Sustainable Business Network has a couple of good directories. Are there any others you can think of, Bree?
Not that I can think of, but I think that's a massive opportunity, to be honest. There could be a way of shopping within itself. So maybe Marjorie, that's a gap you've spotted. How about you, Donald? Is there a community?
The way we've done it is by like the village, working the village of New Zealand. So having a central directory, I think the Sustainable Business Network is a great start, and a really good place, and they're very positive and getting behind it. So I think that's a good start, and obviously X-Labs are awesome. So reaching out to Bree and Louise would be makes complete sense. And then there are people Wendy at perfectly imperfect from a food perspective. So we as a group, we can do better and lift that profile, but yeah, it's a start.
Okay, well, I think this is probably at the end of our questions. As Cheryl said, we're going to circulate the presentations, and the recording will be available on our website in the next couple of days. And so just really thank again Bree and Donald for your time this morning. Yeah, great presentations and really interesting, so thank you.
And thank you for bringing us together, Joey, Cheryl and Carolyn.
Pleasure, guys. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.